Hey everybody, Eternal Fire here, bringing you a video on the Fury Warrior class guide to the pre-patch of the Legion expansion 7.0.3. Today we're going to be talking about the Fury Warrior talent trees, the Spellbook, and we're going to be going over the rotation to maximize on your Fury Warrior. With that said, we're going to get into the talent trees. On the first tier we have War Machine, Enrage, Endless Rage, and Fresh Meat. War Machine, killing a target grants 30% haste and 30% movement speed for 10 seconds. That's not really something that I think is going to be viable in any sort of PvE situation. Endless Rage, your auto attacks generate 30% additional rage. This is by far the most powerful ability in this tier. Fresh Meat, your Bloodthirst has a 40% increased critical strike chance against targets above 80% health. So, that's only, 20% health of that target's ability, health that is going to be beneficial for that. So, it really doesn't weigh over the fact that you're just generating with Endless Rage 30% additional rage from your auto attacks. Shockwave, Stormbolt, and Double Time are your next tier. Shockwave might be really beneficial for you if you're in a 5-man dungeon or something. You want to have that control CC ability. Stormbolt, it's not really something that I think is viable for a PvE warrior. Double Time increases the maximum of charges you have by 1, so you have 2 charges available. I think that's going to be the biggest increase there in that tier for mobility. And then in the next tier, you have Wrecking Ball, Outburst, and Avatar. Wrecking Ball attacks have a chance to make your next Whirlwind deal 200% increased damage. Outburst, Berserker Rage now causes Enrage. I think with the current PvE spec for Fury, you get Enrage plenty, so you really don't need to use that ability. It's much more beneficial to have Avatar, where you get the 20% increased damage, removing all roots and snares, which is also helpful, and you get that for 20 seconds. It's on a 1.5 minute cooldown. Then Furious Charge. Charge also increases healing from your next Blood Burst by 300%, maybe, in a PvP setting. If you were trying to make a PvP build for Fury, that would be beneficial. Bounding Stride is your old glyph ability where you have a reduced cooldown on Heroic Leap by 15 seconds and a speed boost by 70% for 3 seconds after you leap. War Paint, you now only take 20% increase damage from Enrage. And if you look at Enrage without that ability, you take 30% increased damage for 4 seconds while Enrage is active. So this just basically gives you a 10% damage reduction while you have Enrage active, which is hopefully as much as possible. Then you go to the next tier, you have Massacre. Execute critical strikes, reduce the rage cost of your next rampage by 100%. I really, I prefer Carnage because you want to be using Carnage as much as possible. I feel like Execute has a much smaller role in Fury now than it did before. Frothing Berserker. When you reach 100 rage, your damage is increased by 10% and your movement speed by 30% for 6 seconds. It's only 6 seconds, so I really don't feel like it's beneficial, whereas with Rampage, reducing the rage cost of Rampage by 15 rage is, just going to be really, really a big ability for us. Go to the next tier, you have Bloodbath, Frenzy, and Inner Rage. Bloodbath, for 10 seconds, your melee attacks and abilities cause the target to bleed for 40% additional damage over 6 seconds. Frenzy, Furious Slash increases your haste by 5% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. And Inner Rage, Raging Blow no longer requires Enrage and deals 150% increased damage, but it has a 4.5 second cooldown. Now, I've been playing quite a bit with that, and I just find that is, like, hands down the best way to go. You still want to be using your Raging Blow when you're enraged as much as possible, but it's just a much more powerful, viable ability now. Then you drop down to the final tier, you have Blade Storm, which is just an AoE ability. You have Reckless Abandon, Battle Cry generates 100 rage. I really don't feel like, if you're going to be using your cooldowns properly and timing everything right, you're going to have the rage you need when you're going to pop your burst out. You don't need an ability just to do that for you. I just don't think that's a viable option. And then Dragon Roar. Roar explosively, dealing damage to all enemies within 8 yards and increasing all damage you deal by 20% for 6 seconds. Dragon Roar ignores all armor and always critically strikes. So that's going to be, a really big thing before you pop your damage cooldowns. You're going to always make sure you Dragon Roar if you have it up. because that's going to just give you 20% increased damage when you have Battle Cry up, when you're enraged and you're using Rampage and Raging Blow. So with that said, we're going to go to the spellbook real quick. We're just going to go over a couple things. Avatar, we went over that. Dragon Roar, we went over that. Battle Cry, Let Loose a Battle Cry, granting 100% increased critical strike chance for 5 second. Enraged Regen reduces damage taken by 30%, and Bloodthirst restores an additional 20% health, usable while stunned. So that's something you can use to, for survivability. Berserker Rage hasn't changed for us unless you take the talent. Execute is the same thing as well. Bloodthirst, you assault the target in a bloodthirsty craze, dealing damage and restoring 4% of your health, generates 10 rage. So that's going to be one of your main talents or abilities you can use to generate rage. Furious Slash, you aggressively strike your target with your offhand weapon for physical damage, increasing your bloodthirst critical strike chance by 15% until the next bloodthirst is a critical strike, stacking up to 6 times. So basically, Furious Slash until you get a bloodthirst critical strike, which enrages you, or that's another thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned, is that your bloodthirst enrages you, and when you use Rampage, that also enrages you. So those are the two things you need to keep in mind. In being enraged is where all your damage comes from. So that's just like your arms class using Colossal Smash. Your enrage is where all your damage needs to be focused around. So that's going to be your filler ability when you have nothing else up. Charge is your charge. Heroic Leap, we know what that is. Commanding Shout is now your rallying cry. It increases your party or raid members' health within 30 yards by a max of their maximum health by 15% for 10 seconds. So that's a survival ability right there. Heroic Throw, you throw your weapon, generating high rage. Intimidating Shout, your AoE fear. Piercing Howls, come back to the Fury Warrior. It snares all enemy within 15 yards, reducing their movement speed by 50% for 15 seconds. Pummels your interrupt. Raging Blow is a mighty blow that deals weapon damage, generates 5 rage. That's going to be one of your main abilities, interchanged with Rampage. Then Rampage, really fun ability. Let's take a look at what that looks like. Rampage, you enrage and you unleash a series of 5 brutal strikes over 2 seconds. And it just, the visual looks so cool. That's going to be probably your main ability. Taunt, I really don't know why we would want to use that in this case. Whirlwind, this is really awesome because Whirlwind no longer costs rage to use, so Fury Warrior can just go ham with that. It unleashes damage, striking all enemies within 8 yards for physical damage. Causes your next Bloodthirst or Rampage to strike up to 4 additional targets for 50% damage. So, when you charge into a pack of trash or whatever, and you start your AoE rotation, you're going to Whirlwind, and then you're going to want to use Bloodthirst until you have Rampage available. And once you have Rampage available, you use that Whirlwind and Rampage, and that makes your Rampage do damage to multiple targets. Your Enrage, Bloodthirst critical strikes will enrage you, increasing your attack speed by 100% and damage you take by 20% for 4 seconds. So, keep in mind that's why that War Paint ability is really important, because it decreases the damage you take from that. Unshackled Fury increases damage done while enraged by 40%. That's your mastery. That's why all your damage is focused around rage. And then Titan's Grip, good old Titan's Grip, that's your dual wielding 2-handed weapons. So let's take a look at the single target Fury Warrior damage rotation. First and foremost, you're going to charge in. You're not going to pop any of your cooldowns yet until you've built enough rage to use Rampage. So you're going to charge in, you're going to use Bloodthirst and Raging Blow to build rage. Once you have enough rage to use Rampage, you're going to use Dragon Roar. Then you're going to pop your Battle Cry and your Avatar, and then use Rampage. Then you're going to follow it up with Raging Blow and Bloodthirst if it's not on cooldown. Follow it up with Furious Slash. You're going to use that if nothing else is available. And then you're going to use your Bloodthirst and then your Raging Blow, and then you should probably have another Rampage up. Then you're just going to rinse and repeat that rotation. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So we're going to charge in. Right away we got a Rampage up, so we're going to use our Dragon Roar. We're going to pop our cooldowns. We're going to use Rampage. We're going to use Raging Blow, and then Bloodthirst, and then we're going to just Furious Slash. Now we have more available. So as you can see at this point, it's just a rinse and repeat rotation. Very easy to use, very fun. I've really been enjoying it. So now let's take a look at the single target or the AOE target rotation. So if you have multiple targets, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to charge in. You're going to want to use Dragon Roar. You're going to want to use Whirlwind because that makes your Bloodthirst and Rampage do damage to multiple targets. The target that you're not primarily targeted on, the other targets will get 50% of the normal damage from Bloodthirst and Rampage, followed by when they are followed by a Whirlwind. So you use your Whirlwind, then you get AoE Bloodthirst. Use your Whirlwind, you get AoE Rampage. So you're going to use the Whirlwind Bloodthirst until you have enough rage to use Whirlwind Rampage. So that's going to be your AoE rotation for your Fury Warrior. So that's pretty much it, guys. That summons up the Fury Warrior. It's a lot of fun to play. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching the video. Leave a comment, like, and subscribe.